So now what we're going to do is just open that back up. I can see a line of where it was in half, and I just want to sew some iron some fusible interfacing on that wrong side there. So I've just cut a couple of sections. I like to use 2 bits of fusible interfacing. I find that the eyelets get a bit of pressure on them. They can actually come out. So if you just go and iron your fusible interfacing to the bottom side of your waistband. So you saw that we folded it in half to get our center measurement, and now we're just going to put those bits of interfacing on. So okay, now we're going to set the eyelets into our waistband. Now most eyelets come with a few tools. You buy them I buy mine in a pack. I have a setting tool, and I have a little hole tool here to create the holes. But before we do that, we just want to make sure that we're happy with where our eyelets are going to sit. Now we really want them, so we've got where our halfway line of our waistband is. I did iron it while I was downstairs. We've got our fusible interfacing, and I've still got my pin in the center of the fabric. So I'm just going to actually measure the length from the center. So it's actually 3 inches, because remember we cut it 6 inches. So at 1.5 I'm going to put a dot, so I know that that's right center of the waistband. Now I find eyelets 1 inch apart to be really good, so I'm just going to put another dot at 1 inch intervals, so I can see my eyelets are going to go there and there. Now I just use a Sharpie pen. I'm going to punch that hole out anyway, so you're not going to see it, and obviously it's on the inside anyway. So now this is the tricky bit where we want to try and get it right. So you will need a hammer, and you will need your eyelet tool. Now there's a hole in the bottom of your eyelet. Now you're going to have to sort of feel, so that mark that we made, I push around my my hole maker, and then we just put that tool in the center, and we just give that, you might need to give it a few bangs, and there we go. And now we've got our eyelet hole and there. Now I'll still need my little tool underneath, but here is where I will actually grab. The eyelets come in 2 pieces, so you have a top bit, which I guess has got the eyelet on it. Now we want to put that on this little hole maker, and we want to put the right side of the fabric down over the top of it. So just gently ease that over. Now with your back piece, you will notice that there's a raised bit and an inside bit with the washer, I guess. The raised bit goes on the top, and you want that eyelet sitting again in that that bottom piece nice and evenly. Again, put the top over. A couple of really good hammers. Now you will notice that I'm doing this on a self-healing mat rather than on my cutting mat. Now if I just have a look at that, that's the front of the eyelet, that's sitting really nice, and that's the back of the eyelet. Now don't worry if you don't have any eyelets available to you, you can actually make buttonholes. So it is the same principle, just make sure you measure everything prior to putting the buttonholes in. That's the most important step. Now we're going to attach our waistband. So what we want to do is fold our right sides together this time. So as you fold your waistband, you should see it facing up, and you just want to grab the ends of your waistband here, and we just want to sew that up. Now here is where, once you've sewed that waistband up, go into and just try it on. Just make sure you're happy with the fit around your waist, make sure it's not too loose. If you need to tighten it, just take it in a little bit. Once you're happy with the fit of your waistband, we'll move on to the next step. Okay, so the next step here is to actually quarter our waistband. So we want to turn it right sides together so that our lovely eyelets or buttonholes are sitting on the outside. So you should have ironed that earlier, so it should sit nicely. Now again, we're going to use the back seam as our first quarter, because we want to match that up with the back seam of our pants. So where the back seam is, as you folded it, just stick your pin in there, so you've got 1 point. Now the second point will be right in the middle of your eyelets or buttonholes. So again, that's really important because we want them to sit center when we attach them to our pants. So again, just clip that as the second anchor point, and then to get your quarters, you just match those two together and then clip the two outside points. So if you can go ahead and quarter your waistband, this is a tip that you use for, you'll use this for neck bands, you use this for cuffs, you'll use this a lot in your sewing, quartering. Attaching elastic, it's a really useful tip, and it's really easy to do. As I said, you've just got 4 pins or 4 clips, so we just want to make sure that we do that evenly. That's really important that they're even. Just double check them if you need to move them around prior to attaching. Then we'll move on to the next step. Okay, there are a couple of ways that you can attach the waistband to your pants. I prefer to work right sides together, then I can see what I'm doing. Now again, we want to make sure that we can understand where the front of our pants is. We don't want our eyelets at the back of our pants. So the front has got a lower rise, so I'm going to start with the front of my pants. So I'll take that quarter mark with the front. I'll grab my waistband. Now the tip here is to put your eyelets facing down onto your pants. So you just want to match that front clip of your waistband to the front clip of your pants, so where that front seam is. So if you clip that together, and then when you turn your waistband over, it should be showing your eyelets. So it should be sitting, and you can double check that it's right in the center. So what you'll need to do is, after you've done that, is feed your pants through your waistband so that you're able to clip it right sides together. So now what we do is we just take the second quarter of our waistband. So that was the front section, this is the side quarter, and again we just match it with the pins where we've quartered our pants. So you're basically just matching. Don't worry that there's going to be extra fabric than there is of your waistband. I'll show you, we'll stretch that to make it fit, but this will give a nice even stretch to it if we just match up all those quarters. So if you just continue around, peg all your quarters in, and then I'll show you how to stretch it. Okay, so now you should have your 4 pegs in and your 4 quarters. So now what I like to do here is to actually work the same principle. So between two of my clips, I have a lot of excess fabric. So I just pull that out to find the middle of that excess fabric, and again the middle of my waistband. So as you can see, I'm just pulling it evenly like that, and then without you know, you can pin that if you like, but I then just use my fingers and I just match up those 2 points. So what you'll then have is you'll be then making it go into 8ths. So in that section there, even though there is a little bit of loose fabric, we'll stretch the waistband as we put it on, and you'll find that that just fits really nice and evenly all the way around. So you can see what I did there. I'll just demonstrate on another section again. I just pull that out to make and then where my fingers match, I will just peg that together. And again, so we're basically got our quarters, and then we've got quarters again, and then as we do our as we attach our waistband on, it will sit nice and evenly as we go around. So if you can just do that step as well, so you should end up with 8 pins. So you can see I'm applying a little bit of stretch to the waistband, just making sure that I'm catching the edge of the bottom fabric as I'm overlocking along. So you can see the pin, so I'll stretch that, and then I will catch that fabric as I'm sewing along. So if you just gently ease the waistband, it will have that stretch, but as you stretch it, it should be a nice even stretch to the fabric. Now I'm going to need 2 hands to do this, so I'm going to have to sew it around. If you have any trouble, as I said, you just stretch the top. You're not wanting to stretch the main fabric because there's already enough fabric there, so we're stretching the waistband only to fit, and the fabric should just fall nicely. Is a waistband attached to our pants, and our eyelets right in the center of our pair of pants. Now on the inside, again, you will find that it does look a little bit stretched because the waistband is smaller than the pants, so there will be some slight gathering at the back, but it should be nice and even because we quartered it on both the waistband and the pants. Okay, so now we're moving along. We will come back and do the drawstring last. What we now want to do is to do the cuffs of our pants. So if you don't want cuffs on the bottom of your pants for whatever reason, feel free to just go ahead and hem, turn them up under, and just hem them as is if you don't want them fitted with cuffs. So it's the same principle as our waistband. We will have a right side and a wrong side of our fabric, and what we want to do is we've got a long side and a short side. So what we want to do is match the 2 short sides together, and then we want to sew them. So if we just fold them in half and just pin them and run a seam down there. Again, once you've made these, you can measure them on your ankles. If you've got narrower ankles and you need to take these in, feel free. Just bear in mind you may need to adjust the bottom of your pants to reflect that, and just make sure they've got plenty of give. So you want to make sure that the stretch is going across the fabric. So as I've folded it in half, that's where the stretch is. So if you can go ahead and sew those two seams, and then I'll show you how to attach them. Okay, so now what we should have is our cuffs with our seam attached. Now what we want to do is just fold them halfway. So we want to match that seam on each edge and just clip that together. So you'll end up with, it's very hard on black and I apologize for that. So you just fold them in on themselves. So you should end up with a clean seam on the outside, and your this is your right side of your fabric. So what I do here is just match these raw edges together, so the cut edges. So the fold will actually be at the bottom of your foot. So again, you just want to find the halfway point. So you'll have your clip on your seams and just find the halfway point of your jogger cuff there. So you should have 2 clips in your jogger cuffs. Now what I do is grab the bottom of my pants. Now you've got 2 seams on the bottom of your pants. I always like to put the seam of the cuff on the inside of my leg, personal preference. Now what you want to do is take the folded edge of your cuff and thread that over the leg. So push your leg up through. So what you should have, that's the folded bit of your cuff, and then the 2 raw edges of your cuff will match the raw edge here. So just match your seam up. So you'll pick your inside seam to your clip. So we've got our clip here. Match up your inside seam to your clip. Now obviously we're going to have a lot of fabric at the bottom of the pant. So what we just want to do is pull that out, find the other seam and match the other seam to that second clip that we put on our joggers. Now once you've done that, you should be able to stretch your jogger cuff to sew around it. So as you sew, now you can actually again find the halfway points again, as we did on the waistband, and pin them all in together so you're stretching it nice and evenly. So you can do that. Pin that all in together. Now we're going to make our own drawstring to go through once we've done our cuffs. So what I've done, I don't put mine all the way through. I basically just thread mine right through the eyelets. It's just a decoration. It's up to you if you want to make it all the way through. It's the same principle. I've cut my piece of drawstring. Now what I want to do is I want to fold it in half, and I'm just going to stitch that together along the length of the drawstring. So it'll be right sides together, and just stitch that all the way through, and then I'll show you how to turn it in the right way. Okay, now that we have our drawstring sewn together, what we're going to do is we have our raw edge. I'm just going to attach a safety pin at the end of this, clip it together, and then what I want to do is just grab that safety pin and just turn it and start threading it all the way back through. So it'll just create that drawstring. So just feed that up on itself as you push the safety pin all the way through. We'll find that we end up with a nice drawstring. So it should just, you feel the safety pin as you're folding it through. So if you continue to do that, and then we can add the drawstring to our pants. Okay, and finally we just want to attach the drawstring to our pants. Now I actually use a bobby pin because it fits through my eyelets. I just put it on the end. All I do is just attach the drawstring from one eyelet and through the other eyelet. So bobby pin because it fits through the eyelets rather than a safety pin. I just don't have a small enough one. And there we go, there's our drawstring and there's our pants. So we should have a pair of joggers. So you can knot the ends of the drawstrings if you want to keep them, and you've got your cuffs on the end. So I hope you're happy with the fit of your joggers, and thanks very much for joining me.